First question I've got from you is from a guy called Mick Cooper. He sent in a selection of questions, so I'm only going to get one of them. What's the worst song you've ever released?
Oh my word. The worst song. I probably should have swatted up on this because I have a soft spot for everything we've ever done. There was a reason why they got released. We saw some merit in everything. Let me think about this whilst I turn the clock.
Release, and this question is from a guy called Mick Cooper.
It is a very difficult question because obviously we must have had a soft spot and a reason for everything we did release. But sometimes in hindsight, when you look back, you might think, maybe we weren't thinking straight on that one, or maybe we could have done better. At the risk of alienating probably our American friends, who always get upset with us when we say that Pacific Age was probably the least well-formed album we ever made, maybe The Black Rose. I listen to that now and it does nothing for me. Doesn't resonate in any way anymore.
There we go. Thank you for that one. Next question I've got, Andy, is a question from another Andy, a guy called Andy Russell, and he's been watching lots of interviews with you about History Modern and English Electric, and his question is, do you ever get annoyed answering the same questions over and over again?
No, is the answer. You have to understand that that's part of your job. You know, when you've taken off the artistic hat after you've created it and you want people to hear it, you have to put on your salesman hat. It's as simple as that. And you have to understand that people who come to interview you, or you go to them to be interviewed, it's their one chance to ask that question. And generally it's their audience's one chance to hear your answer. So yes, you might have been asked the same question 10 times that day, but you have to put energy and enthusiasm into giving, the right answer for the 10th time, because you just got to realise that you want people to understand why you did it.
Great. Thanks for that. The next question, Andy, is coming from a guy called Francis Sinclair. He's reflecting on a song, Best Years of Our Lives, which is something that's very special for him. And he's asking, is there any song that's very special to you that's been part of your life? Or even lyrics, even?
There's... The songs in terms of the lyrics and the subject matter tend to fall into a few categories. There's the ones which are sort of intellectual, so things like Joan of Arc or Enola Gay or The Future Will Be Silent, where you're trying to convey an idea, something you're interested in, a concept more than anything else. And then there are ones that are about feelings, which can sometimes be hypothetical, they're not about any event or any person. And yes, there are songs that are very, very autobiographically personal, about people and events and specifics in my life. And Paul has written songs about, issues that are specific to his own life. So, and they are the songs that when you get the lyric right and it conveys the feeling that you want it to convey, they are often the songs that I find still resonate with me, because they transport me back to that feeling that I had. And I think they're often the songs that really resonate with people when they listen to them as well. So things like, Best Years of Our Lives, or Was It Something I Said, or Beginning in the End. It's often the ballads and the B-sides that seem to really resonate with people, and I guess that's the reason.
Couldn't agree more with that one. That's one of the biggest things we always look forward to with the B-sides anyway, rather than the other ones. And the next question is coming from a guy called John Grant, and he's been reading up on the forum, and he says here that
It's all lies.
It's all lies. He says you've had some supernatural experiences, and could you like to elaborate on what they were, and do you have any theories on what the cause was?
Yes, a house I used to live in, I had quite a few supernatural experiences. Particularly, when I first bought the house and was renovating it, underneath the carpets and in corners and behind cupboards and things, I found lots and lots of pins and coins and nails and screws, little shiny objects. And I thought, that's the people who lived here previously have been very, very careless. When I started renovating the house, every time I put nails down or screws, I would come to the last one and be like, I'm sure there was 6 there. I've used 5 and where's the last one gone? And I'd look on the floor and I'd peel back the cover, couldn't find it. And then the next day, or later that day, I'd walk in and it would be right there on the windowsill or fallen onto, I looked there, where's that gone? And it became like a game. And it was as if it was a child hiding things from me. When I met a lady called Minnie Smith, who was born in the house in 1906. She told me that in 1903, when her sister, I think it was called Mary, was born, her older brother, Walter, who was 3 at the time, ran through the house to see his mother in the downstairs room, and he caught his shoulder on the top of the cellar steps, and he fell down the cellar steps and died at the age of 3. And I just wondered whether or not it was Walter Smith playing games with me and previous occupants of the house. So every time I put something down thereafter, I would announce loudly around the whole house, Walter, please leave these screws here. He can't play with them, I need them. And I never lost another one.
That's a wacky story to tell.
There were others as well. There were others, and actually the song "Walking on Air" is based on a story, because there was a back staircase in that house, which is the one that was nearest to my bedroom. And there was one night I was lying in my bed with the back to the bedroom door, and I heard footsteps coming up the staircase, and the door opened, and I just kept my back to the door, and somebody sat on the corner of the bed. And I span around and there was absolutely nobody there. So that song about footsteps on the stair tonight originally came from an actual experience I had.
Well, that's a new one on me. I learn something new every day, and I can put the song actually in my head on that one now, thinking about it. Next one is from a guy called Mark Pearson. He's a lovely guy, Mark, actually. He does quite a lot of artwork. And his question is, in designing the artwork for the first 4 albums, there must be many different ideas that you actually had as far as the artwork goes. Can you sort of describe what your thoughts were on the early artwork on the first albums?
The early albums that were all done by Peter Saville, we completely abdicated responsibility for the design, because after we had first met Peter, it was so obvious that his ideas were better than anything we could ever aspire to, that we were just happy for Peter to give us the thoughts and the ideas. The first album with the cut lozenges was just stunning. I mean, I remember the first time we saw that, it was just like, wow. It was so bold, and still to this day I'm convinced that half of the records we sold were because people wanted to buy the sleeve, they didn't care what was inside it. If you want my honest opinion, I was actually disappointed with the organisation sleeve. I thought that the photograph reproduced too dark. I thought the whole effect was a bit clouded and murky, but I suppose in hindsight that was Saville reflecting on the shift in the music, that it looked more cloudy and austere and sort of glowering, so that shot of sky was, he felt was appropriate. And I can see it now, but at the time I wasn't too keen on it. I loved architectural morality, I thought, and I loved all the different colours we did. That was just great. And of course, Dazzle Ships was just incredible. Peter struggled to get Dazzle Ships on time. He, just for a change, the problem was he had too much time for it. And he distilled the idea down, and it was the first time ever that Peter had delivered a sleeve that I said I didn't like, to his face. And he actually agreed with me. He said, yeah, I think I've probably reduced it too much. It looks more like a 12-inch now. And he actually went, with 24 hours of time to deliver the sleeve, he went to see Malcolm Garrett, and the two of them redesigned it, made it more complex again. And then, of course, when it came out with the gatefold and the holes and the inner sleeve and everything, it was an absolute joy, that sleeve. And of course, I think most people do now know, actually, that was a classic case of the tail wagging the dog, because it was Saville who came to me and said, I've seen this great vorticist painting of dazzle ships in dry dock in Liverpool. I want to do a vorticist sleeve. Can you write a song or call the album Dazzle Ships? So it was Saville's idea to create dazzle ships, and once we'd done it, then he could do the sleeve for it. But it was, in the end, it'd been quite a torturous process, because he overworked the sleeve, and he had to sort of unpick it and make it more complicated again, which was actually, it was great. And I think to this day, my two favourite sleeves are Dazzle Ships and the first album, both with holes cut in them, both bloody expensive.
Do you just sidetrack to that question? Do you miss those days where you had 12-inch by 12-inch blank sheet to create some artwork? Do you actually miss those days?
I really do. I wish that I wish that you could make the artwork. I mean, well, it's come back. Actually, it's come back because we do heavy vinyl albums now, and it was good fun on the last one to actually have some holes cut in. Although, again, I couldn't believe it. Somebody managed to screw it up. That the inner liner was turned the wrong way, so that the way it was supposed to fit into the sleeve, the hole in the liner was at the same place as the hole in the main sleeve, so that the record would fall out, because the liner is supposed to be turned with the hole at the top. But if you turned with the hole at the top, it didn't look right. So it was like somebody screwed up the design as usual. But the whole thing about, people of a certain generation must remember this. You'd take the bus or the train to town or whatever, buy the record, and you'd sit there on the bus or the train on the way home, reading everything, looking at it, open if it's a gatefold, taking things out. The whole thing. There was a whole pile of information and feelings that you'd already assimilated before you even put it on the turntable. That was part of the excitement.
On some of the outruns on some of your albums and even singles, you had very cryptic messages on some of these. Mm-hmm. One of them is the writing is on the ceiling. I think Electricity had something like, will the BBC ever play this? Mm-hmm. Were you responsible for doing any of those messages?
Yes. Will the BBC ever play this was what we asked to be put on. OK Twinkle was another one, because Tony, the girl who became my wife, her nickname was Twinkle. There was quite a few that we usually attended the cut if we could, and so we'd always stick something cryptic on there.
No, I mean, with me, that was one of the first things I used to always do. It's very sad, I suppose, but there you go. Okay, the next question is coming from a guy called Chris Birkinshaw, and as he puts it, it's a very predictable question, but are there any plans to tour again next year? If so, do you think it might be the last time?
We will tour again. We didn't even want to think about it after last year when Malcolm was taken over to Toronto. We wanted to give Malcolm the time to just heal without any kind of pressure. It's bad enough what happened to him. The last thing he needed was us going, are you going to be able to tour? Are you feeling better? What do you want to do? Can you make your mind up? Hurry up. So we just went, stop, Malcolm, you just get well. Take it easy. No pressure. And it was actually only almost exactly a year since Toronto when I was speaking with Malcolm, and he said, I can't tour again. And that was really, we hadn't even wanted to think about it one way or the other. We just wanted Malcolm to be well. And he has given us his permission to play with somebody else playing drums. But he has kept the option open that he says if he feels his strength continues to improve, he would like to be able to play with us again. And we would obviously like that very much. So we are thinking of playing live next year. I can't talk about any of the plans because we also want to be making a new record for release in 2016, which probably preempts another question. But yeah, we're keeping our options open for Malcolm in the future, but at the moment we probably will do some touring next year. There's places we still want to go, and also there's people in America who we didn't get to play to last year because we got cancelled. So it's going to be very, very strange. Really strange for Martin and Paul and I to not have Malcolm behind us. And incredibly difficult for Malcolm as well to not be playing with us. So there's an awful lot of emotion involved in this. It's not just about health, but it's very emotional. But Malcolm has said that he, for the moment, can't do it. So we listen to Malcolm.
That's very honourable, and I think everybody was very shocked with what actually happened.
It was terrifying, and I didn't experience the worst of it. We had to stop. We were just about to start Enola Gay. The drum machine never started, and I'm sort of standing there with my bass on because I just look at the audience. I'm just ready, and he never started. I turned round to see Malcolm getting up and taking his earphones out, and Paul's just going, because Malcolm shouted something to Paul, and Malcolm just went to sit down, and we waited. It was obvious he couldn't continue, so Paul and I went back on stage and made our apologies. And then when I came back off stage, Martin had gone out into the alleyway because he wanted some air. And it was a tiny little alleyway, it was only a few feet wide, so I think Martin and some of the crew were out there with him, and Paul, and I just sort of said, "Is he going to be all right?" And everybody was like, yeah, fine. And we've called an ambulance just in case. So usually I was dripping wet, so I went upstairs to have a shower, and by the time I'd come out of the shower, everything had happened and I'd missed it. There was people looking shocked, there was people in tears, there was flashing lights at the end of the passageway, and Malcolm had a cardiac arrest and was actually, his heart stopped for 3 minutes. I didn't realise at the time it would be 3 minutes, and they took him off, and they'd said before he left to go to hospital that his heart was functioning again. So we all, sort of waited around for information. They said he was going to be fine. So, we all left, and the next day we went down to the hospital, and it was amazing. It was as though it had never happened. Malcolm was sitting there, feeling a bit sore because they had to pump his chest, and he felt like, he said, an elephant had been jumping up and down on him. He didn't remember much of anything, but he was already cracking jokes, It's like the doctor came in and said, we were worried because you were out for 3 minutes, and he went, "I'm a drummer, how'd you tell?" I was like, he's cracking jokes, and you were out for 3 minutes yesterday. I just couldn't believe it. So, and then we had the difficulty because we felt bad because we had to leave. We had to leave Toronto a couple of days later just because everybody had to get out of there because there was we're going to incur all these costs, and the insurance weren't going to pay for us to stay. They would only pay for Malcolm and one other person. So we felt bad about having to leave him in Toronto, but his girlfriend Sabina had come over, and our tour manager stayed, and we kept getting updates. So it was horrible, but it's had as good an outcome as we could. I mean, the best outcome would have been if Malcolm had been able to actually continue to play, but hopefully he'll be back one day.
Never say never.
No.
So that's sweet.
Shall we throw the cat out? Come on, son. I hear you meowing in there. I know. Oh, nice. I can't believe that it's like coming up to the end of September and the grass is dying out there with lack of
remarkable.
rain.
We've had an amazing summer. It was cold in August, but it's just been...
Yeah, August was a bit crap, but June and July were alright, and
Yeah.
September's been nice.
I love this time of year, you know, you've sort of got the autumn, it's just right, it could be next week, you know, the first frost.
Love it.
The biggest one for me is, as soon as you see the conchs come off the trees, you know that's, you're there. Okay, and the next question is from Darius, who is coming to the OMD party from Poland. And a couple of quick questions from him. One is, will you ever play in Poland again? Because he wants you to go back. And he's also asking about old demos, unfinished songs, things perhaps in carrier bags on the tables. Have you any plans to release some of these unfinished or unheard older material?
Okay, a couple of questions there. We would desperately love to play in Poland. We keep getting sort of single and spurious occasional offers from what used to be Eastern Europe. And what we're trying to do is tie them together so that we can actually do a tour. The problem is that it costs money to go on tour, and we have to do it to a certain level. If people offer us below what it actually costs us to tour, Paul and I are quite happy not to make any money out of touring. We just want to go to places. But we can't afford to tour and come home and the accountant goes, that cost you 50 grand. We're like, okay, what was the point of that then? So we are trying to find a way to get into Poland and other places in Eastern Europe. We know people would like to see us, and we had a great response when we did the Night of the Proms in Poland in March. So the answer to that is we really want to do it, and that's one of the things we're looking at trying to do next year. Can't definitely promise, but we're looking to try and make it happen. Okay. And as for the stuff in the carrier bags, the problem is getting it, is getting access to the media and then getting it transferred. However, fingers crossed, the Junk Culture remaster is going to be out just before the end of the year. It'd be a nice Christmas present. And we have found not only 2 really early versions of Tesla Girls from Highland Studios in Inverness from 1983, where we are doing what we used to do before we had a Fairlight computer, which was writing onto tape, thinking onto tape. There is also the original version of Heaven Is, with the fast drums on it. There is also Love and Violence, when it was called 10 to 1, and it's completely different lyrics apart from the second verse, and completely different music. And there is also a song called The Sitar Song, which has never been released, and a song which is called Paul's Song, because he wrote it. There was always one called Paul's Song, and he was always the last one to put titles on his song, that has never been released. And there's a version of White Trash, which is completely different as well. So I think people buying the Junk Culture remaster will get to hear things that have never been heard before. Not just early demos, which we've done for the last 2 albums, not just B-sides that were only available on vinyl, but actual recordings we made that never made it to see the light of day.
And is Heaven Is about Selena Scott?
Heaven Is with Selena Scott as opposed to Christy Canyon. Yes, that is the lyric.
I have to sort of make a visual comparison and things conjure up into my brain when I
How would you know what Christy Canyon looks like?
I used to have a dodgy moustache one Sunday.
You weren't called Ron Jeremy, were you?
Right, at that point, we will swiftly move on. The next one is a question from Trevor Bromelo, lovely guy. And he wants to ask you, what was the biggest UK concert you've ever held, and where was it?
The biggest UK concert? I suppose the largest crowd we've played to in the UK was the Rewind Festival a few years ago, where we headlined the closing night on a Sunday in Henley. I believe that was 20,000. So that would be probably the biggest crowd. Somebody will tell me now that we did some outdoor show in Cardiff for Radio 1 Roadshow or something that was more. That's, well, yeah, in fact, we did do a Radio 1 thing. We did one at Alexander Palace when we met the guys from St Etienne for the first time. I don't know how many people were there. I'm going to pick up 20,000 for Rewind.
Excellent. Final question that's actually been sent in is from Andy, we'll call him Andy DK, and he's asking, what gives you the biggest buzz? Is it performing or the satisfaction knowing you're the father of a litter of kittens?
Well, I'm not the father of the kittens. If I had to choose between creating Atomic Kitten and performing my own songs, it would be performing our own songs, because obviously there's an opportunity there to combine writing something that is for yourself to express and sing on record, and then to take it and perform it live. It sort of ticks more boxes. The Kittens was great fun, really enjoyed it. Particularly the first couple of years where we didn't have a clue what we were doing, and we got them a deal and we made the record, and through thick and thin and hell and high water we finally got to #1 and had a massive album. It was really exciting, and then unfortunately people got greedy and we got our contracts ripped up by the record company and the management, and it all went a bit unpleasant for a while. So there was nothing to do with the girls, it was all other people just angling for stuff. So yeah, I mean, being in OMD, I mean, in some respects actually doing Atomic Kitten and then the Genie Queen and working with other people in Liverpool ended up being so frustrating that I was really excited to be able to be in Orchestral Manoeuvres and Dark again. I really never thought we'd do it. I didn't think Paul and Martin and Malcolm and I would be able to get back on the same page again. I didn't think people wanted to see us play. I never thought we'd be able to release new music. So, the last 7 or 8 years has really been quite incredible. And, despite the frightening thing that happened to Malcolm, we will continue. We will also ask Malcolm to do things for us and with us whenever we can, whenever he can. He's programming drums, hopefully, as we speak, for, give the game Romance of the Telescope for the Museum of Liverpool concert. So we will have Malcolm there in, his programming will be playing. And we will work with him again in terms of writing and maybe recording in the studio when he can play at his leisure. It's just travelling around doing gigs every day, exhausting yourself and playing for 90 minutes on stage is something that I think at the moment is still beyond him, but you never know.
And final quick question from myself. Lyrics for BCL 11, where are they?
There aren't. Strangely enough, actually, something not dissimilar happened to me and Paul when we first went to Greece, and we met Alex and George from Greece, and they were like, this is our favourite song, and they put on Navigation. I said, now we've got you in our car. What are the lyrics? I went, there are none. They went, well, no, what do you mean? No, it's English and we don't understand you. What are you singing? I said, no, I'm not singing words. I'm actually singing a scat vocal that is just some words, some nonsense, something that sounds like words. I just never actually wrote the words, and it's the same with VCL 11, I'm afraid. There are no words.
Thank you, Andy, for answering those questions and taking the time out for us. Thank you very much.
A pleasure, and thank you for coming to talk to me, and enjoy the rest of the party.
Brilliant, that's excellent. Good.